Welcome back to Empowered and Out, the podcast that helps LGBTQ plus professionals reclaim their purpose, rebuild their confidence, and thrive in careers where they don't have to mask who they are. Today's guest brings fresh insight from an industry many LGBTQ plus professionals don't always feel represented in. But that's exactly why his voice matters. Ben Crawford has spent over 6 years navigating the UK's automotive industry, from a major manufacturer to now building media and brand partnerships at Carwow, the UK's largest new car marketplace. But behind the career moves is something bigger, a commitment to advocacy, visibility, and rethinking what it really means to thrive as an LGBTQ plus professional. From his university days as LGBTQ plus society president to finding mentorship and community in a male-dominated, fast-evolving industry, Ben's story is a powerful reminder that authenticity and career success don't have to be at odds, but we do need to challenge the systems that make it feel that way. So if you're a longtime listener or tuning in for the first time, I am so glad that you're here. Let's dive into this powerful conversation with Ben. And Ben, welcome to Empowered and Out.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
I am as well. I am very excited that you had reached out initially, and it's hard to believe that we're finally here. We finally got the chance to record this. So let's begin. So how did you first find your way into the automotive industry, and what pulled you in?
That's a really good question. I think if we think about when we're kids and what jobs we want when we're older, and people think like police officer, firefighter, teacher, whatever, I always wanted to be a car designer. And that was something that I really loved. And I spent a lot of my childhood like drawing cars over and over and over again. And unfortunately, art is not my strong suit. So I was never going to achieve being a car designer. But somehow through quite a few twists and turns, I've actually found my way back into the industry, which is really great. And I'm sure people will be pleased to hear that I'm nowhere near car design. But yeah, it's been a really sort of interesting road to get to where I am. Overall, I think through education, I actually found a love for law. Really wanted to kind of move into that space. And I found the idea of being in a courtroom really glamorous, and those big sort of speeches and questioning the witness and all of those kind of topics. Again, unfortunately, didn't get the grades to go and study law at university, which I am so thankful for now. A few years in retail, which was some of the best years I've had in my career, working for a really well-known UK department store. I was ever so briefly an estate agent, or I guess real estate agent, as you term over in the States, before finding my way to university eventually a bit later at the age of 21, where I studied business and marketing, which is my background now within automotive. And during that time at university, I did a year-long internship at a globally recognized car brand. And then from there, have since ended up at Carwow. So sort of a marketplace within the automotive industry. So sort of done both sides, the client element and the marketplace bit as well, but learned a lot through every single stage of that journey to get to where I am now.
Nice. Yeah, I cannot draw. Definitely not cars. Oh my goodness, no. I draw cars, people like a 5-year-old child. I used to, when I was younger, I wanted to be an architect. So I could draw homes, and I loved that. And then I realized my math is awful. And so I failed in geometry, was not my thing. I tried that in trigonometry and those. Yeah, my mom was a math major at university, and that did not pass on to me. So I got the love of history and science that my dad had, but I did not. And obviously the creative, aspect, but I didn't. Yeah, no, I had to say goodbye to any type of drawing that I thought would probably be fun. But honestly, I know that I'm in the right spot, even though I've done many different jobs. I've always wanted to help people. I've always wanted to share new experiences, new people. And as I've said, before on this podcast and just in many of the chats with people coming on, this is my third podcast. So I've obviously enjoyed what I'm doing. this one I feel means way more than the other two did. Just like you and I were speaking off air before we started recording. I mean, this is huge. This has gotten to a point that it's worldwide and in a very short amount of time. And the listeners are coming more and more each time I get to interview awesome people like yourself. So I feel very fortunate. And I've even made it to where people can even support my podcast, which I had thought about it in previous podcasts, but I didn't feel it was really beneficial until now to really put it out there. So working in the automotive industry, was there a moment early on when you thought, oh, wow, this place, this space feels different as an LGBTQ plus professional?
I think, yeah, absolutely. I think all throughout my career, so I sort of came to terms with my sexual orientation back when I was sort of 18. So I was working in retail at the time, and it never occurred to me throughout my entire career that you could hide who you were from, not tell your employer you were gay and just sort of turn up to work and not really engage with that side of yourself while you're at work. So to me, from coming from my whole, I guess, retail, estate agency, university, to then drop into automotive and an incredibly sort of rigid corporate structure, I thought, oh, okay, this is different. And I think I gained that perspective where you see sort of up the org chart, so to speak, and you see your directors, your heads of, and everybody, and they are all in large part, I think, middle-aged men, essentially, and they're all straight. Typically they're white, and that's sort of the nature of the beast, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I suddenly thought, okay, I'm still going to be myself, and that's fine. But I knew from university that there were so many other people that I'd come to know, particularly through my role as LGBT president, who were people who were so fiercely themselves. And because I went to university, I started when I was 21. I was president of LGBT at 22 in the second year, representing people who were 18 from the first year. And that was 2018. So these kids were born in the year 2000. I know. So, yeah. And so I would almost describe them as like the RuPaul generation. They've grown up enjoying just the most incredible, broader societal, I guess, acceptance around being LGBTQ plus, which is amazing. But what I almost saw was you had all these people who were out and fiercely themselves in so many different amazing ways. And you suddenly think, okay, in 2 years' time, they're going to finish their degrees and be in the workplace. And the workplace is this very seemingly quite sort of sterile, like non-inclusive place, or it doesn't feel inclusive because there aren't many people who look like me to some degree in the sense of being LGBTQ plus. And I thought, oh, this could get interesting, particularly when it comes to, I'd just been through sort of a huge undergraduate recruitment process. So big sort of group interviews and presentations, one-on-one interviews. And I thought, I'm not sure whether somebody like turning up, presenting more clearly LGBT than myself would get through that process as well. And that's worries me slightly because the company I worked for at the time, I absolutely loved. And I want them to do well. And you know that the way that that business is going to do well is by embracing a huge amount of diversity across the intersectionality of different identities, but also diversity of thought. And I thought, my goodness, there's a problem here. There's a problem coming down the track that you've got an amazingly empowered youth who need to translate into an amazingly empowered workforce. And that's where I think that advocacy came from, starting at university, where I accidentally became the president of LGBT, which I'm sure we can touch on later on, translated across into the work I do, into my career, and even now as part of the Wow group at Carwow. It's so important, I think, to encourage that talent to come through and work for your organization.
I agree. I think one of the biggest benefits I got, especially from the last company I worked with, was an interesting, I don't know if I even mentioned this to you, they're UK based. And so it was my first time actually working for a company that was not created or initially based in the United States. And I actually loved it. One of the biggest things I saw was that they really focused on family, spending time with your family. They really were huge. And I know this is such a buzzword, but they really were focused on work-life balance. They really did want you to have that time away from work with your family, friends, whatever it might be. And it was the first time that I could actually fully be myself as an LGBTQ plus professional. Never was like that with any other American based, US based company. But who would have thought it was going to be a UK based company that actually was the one that actually helped me to feel my most comfortable and the most active that I ever was in the employee resource group. Like the LGBTQ plus group was amazing. We had amazing support. Our executive sponsor was actually the CEO of the Americas region.
Wow.
And what was even cooler about it was that he was an openly gay man. And it was like, wait, what? How is this possible? What world am I living in where I had to keep pinching myself? Because it's like a CEO is our executive sponsor, which is cool in itself that it's the CEO. But knowing that he was an openly gay man that had been married to his partner for, 25 years was huge. And I think it was a great representation. I know that it does make a difference. And I love, like you said, like the younger generation being so proud and out, but it's not an easy translation over into the workplace, unfortunately. Now, it does depend a little bit on the industry. Hopefully that will change. It could be a little bit more challenging here in the US due
Yeah,
to recent
absolutely.
events. But I feel there are still industries where we can shine, especially.
Absolutely. I think it sounds really great as well that your CEO was that leader, and you could almost have that champion and that inspiration as well. I think this is where the automotive industry on a lot of different fronts is lagging behind the times to some degree, and have, I guess, even within the time and the short span of my career so far, sort of 5-6 years, I've seen that those sort of big players in the industry, those big globally recognized brands, really embracing sort of diversity and inclusion generally, but in particular sort of that LGBTQ plus angle
Mm-hmm.
of that as well, which is really great. But I would struggle to name uh, a few sort of senior role models at the moment, which is why I think we need to move on beyond sort of not being known for the groups that just want to put on the pride parade every summer, actually sort of taking our
Yeah.
career seriously in that advocacy, which is why I think what you do with the careers coaching is so important, because we don't just need to do sort of the low level work. And you think, like, stereotypically, what do gay men do for their careers? They're hairdressers, they're air stewards, they're drag queens, which are all perfectly brilliant professions. But you
Mm-hmm.
can also be LGBTQ plus and really successful in business, or be a car mechanic, or even a car designer. I'm sure that
Exactly.
somebody will get
Yeah.
there. It just won't be me. But yeah, you've got to have the success that you feel you want.
Well, and I feel that if you can see people that are possibly a leader in your company or a higher lead, that's encouragement. That's something. Oh, great! If they can be a manager, they can be a director, they could be a CEO. Maybe I can be as well. And I think that it's always been said, if you can see someone that is like you, where you work, where you hang out, wherever it might be, you feel a lot more comfortable, and you feel like, okay, I can do that as well. It's that little encouragement
Absolutely.
that we tell ourselves. So your advocacy journey started at university, and you've described it as, kind of accidental. Tell us about that night that set you on this path and how it changed the way you showed up afterward.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Up until, I guess, when I was at university, so I started at the age of 21, I'd never really engaged, I guess, with like broader sort of LGBTQ plus like advocacy topics. I'd never been to a pride, for example. I had never really felt unsupported. Still have the most amazing group of friends and support network and family. And I think that's probably testament actually to the hard work that numerous generations of LGBTQ plus people did in advocating in broader society, so that I could have that experience, which is really, really great. And then, yeah, we cut to university. I'm in my first year. So it's back in 2017. I've got an amazing group of gay friends, and we're due to go on a night out in Bristol on a Wednesday, which was always student night. And a friend of mine said, okay, on the way out next week, can we just stop by the vote for the LGBTQ plus society committee for next year? And then we'll continue with our night out. And I thought, yeah, fine. I don't really mind. I'm happy to go along, and I'll express some opinions and cast a vote. That sounds like a great evening to me. So cut to the Wednesday night, and I asked my friend for the details, where we're meeting and all of that kind of stuff. he says, oh, actually, the vote's been cancelled because there's no candidates for any of the committee positions, which meant from a university perspective that the society gets paused for a year, and then there was no LGBT society. Where I went to uni, we had a student body of 27,000 students. And I thought it would be absolutely ridiculous to have no LGBT representation for that student body for a year. So just ended up sort of thinking, oh, well, fine, I'll do it. And then cobbled together a few friends. I grabbed my best friend at the time and made him the vice president, grabbed my straight friend who was my housemate and made her sort of in charge of entertainment and like events, grabbed another friend for treasurer, and we then had to rerun the vote, and we were all elected unopposed. And I think I probably had 5 votes from the other people in the committee because we all had to vote for each other to get.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Into that position, which fine. So we managed to sort of keep that society running. But I thought, my goodness, we can never let this happen again. You can't have such a large university with no LGBT representation.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
It's just, it couldn't compute with me. And all of a sudden I was like I was really driven to ensure that this would never happen again. So we had sort of an aim to drive the engagement with the society that had seemingly dropped off to the point where nobody wanted to take it forwards. And also to have an uncontested election seemed ridiculous. So my second goal was to have a contested election the following year where people want to do the roles to lead the advocacy for the community. And it was one of the best decisions I think I've ever made. I learned so much over the course of that year. I had such a good time, and I really felt like I was able to make a difference on sort of a big level in terms of, we finished the year having hosted the UK's largest student fundraiser for HIV and AIDS. We were the best funded student society at our university by a considerable margin. I had introduced the first ever dedicated trans rep who was able to lead on specific trans issues within the university. And I had a contested election when I left. So I was really pleased with what we were able to achieve on sort of that kind of big goal set level, but also on a personal level as well, just being able to help individual students. There's one person who I still don't know the name of, but we hosted a panel discussion on coming out across the university student and staff LGBT network. So we got a range of opinions, and we invited everybody into a room and we completed the panel. This one person I remember seeing out the corner of my eye walked in with a hoodie, and they came in and they sat at the back of the room. And I was sort of, in trying to be on the panel, you sort of don't really pay too much attention to specific people in the audience. So I couldn't tell you what they looked like or any sort of characteristic. I just knew that this shape had walked into the room and sat down. We went through the panel. It was really good fun. He got to the end and I'm wrapping up, and I said, okay, if you have any questions and you don't want to ask them in front of the group, you want to talk to us one-on-one, feel free to stay behind. We'll have a conversation with you. And all I remember is this person standing up and bolting for the door and the door slamming. And I thought, oh gosh, okay, maybe this didn't go as well as I thought. And then we cut to a few months later, and I was having a particularly bad day. I think I was stressed about a university deadline or something. And the vice president on my committee came up to me and he goes, do you remember that person who turned up to your coming out panel? And I was like, yeah, vaguely. He said, well, that person came out to their flatmates that night, and now they're enjoying being openly part of the community within university. And then a few months later at Christmas, that person had gone home and come out to their family. And then a few months later in the spring, that person had their first boyfriend and they were out on campus living as a gay man. I thought, okay, that's what this is about, really, is being able to empower people to be themselves, which is something that I think is a huge privilege and something that all of us within the community are capable of doing. And if we all do just a little bit, then we'll do 1,000 things. That, I think, and that enjoyment and that drive from doing it is what's carried me through to kind of continuing some of these topics throughout my career, because it's just so much fun and it's so powerful. And what we can achieve together is really, really incredible as well.
That's so wonderful. And you're right. I can't imagine a university that size to not have that representation, especially for a year. Just looking back even at that time frame, we were dealing with the first term of our current president.
Yes.
and we were having so much fun over here. We definitely needed someone that was like having that push for, I mean, we had definitely strong representation like here, but yeah, that's so big. What a great way to see how powerful having that group being active was, to have that person being able to come out and, to their flatmates, to their family, to the, friends, and then to go like full circle and then getting their first boyfriend. I mean, that's huge. I do feel though, in my opinion, that you get to feel like when you get to go to university, you have that opportunity to really find yourself and to be yourself more than you can, before you get to that point. So I love that person was able to then go home and, have that conversation with their family, because your experience was a little bit different and we may touch on that. But yeah, that's a big thing. I mean, when you can have that acceptance with your friends, with your family especially, it just makes life so much easier, because then you're actually able to really be the authenticity becomes even stronger in yourself.
Absolutely. I think you can waste so much energy on trying to protect yourself from being yourself. Particularly, I think if you're in a workplace that isn't as open and you're not out at work, that is a lot of energy. And I think also just in terms of your mental health and well-being as well, just to spend so much time not being yourself, as particularly at work where you spend probably the most amount of time, is really huge. So I think the more that we can enable people to feel that they can be themselves at work, and I don't think we're fully there yet. Even I don't think we'll ever be there 100% of the time where every
Yeah.
LGBTQ plus person is out and proud at work. It would be great, but I don't think it is ever possible. But if we can make workplaces as inclusive as possible for everyone, then I think we can, you get better business outcomes, but also it's just better when everyone's themselves.
For sure. Yeah. It's what I learned yesterday. Like, when companies showcase, like really focus on inclusivity, they actually are stronger. I would love to quote what was given to me. I'd have to go back and listen to the podcast, the episode that I had, the interview that I had, which was a wonderful interview, but there was a study done, and it said the more inclusive and accepting of how the company runs, the more productive that company ends up being. Listeners, you're just going to have to listen to that episode. That's all I can say. Just keep listening to Empowered and Out. You'll hear it. It's a great study, and the conversation was great. But anyways, let's get back to talking with Ben, because I'm in awe already. I mean, I was in awe just before we even recorded with you. So automotive obviously isn't the first industry that people think of when they hear diversity and inclusion. Why do you think representation matters so much in this space?
I think we've touched on it loosely already, but I think that there's two key reasons. So as you talked about before, I think it's critical from a business perspective. If we put our kind of cold-hearted business mind at it, you want to have the best diversity of thought and experience you can within a business. And automotive is a great example of this, right? So it's a stereotypically male-dominated industry. I think the same way quite a lot of industries are that have that kind of historical kind of factory engineering kind of base. But if we were to think about who drives cars, straight white men don't just drive cars. I don't know about you, Jonathan, but I also drive a car as a gay man.
I do as well, yes.
Doing that. Yeah. And I've also seen women drive cars. I've seen people of color drive cars. I've seen trans people drive cars. And that is where all of those people should be round the boardroom, inputting their opinions, because you get better business outcomes as a result. And also, on the complete opposite end of that spectrum, just as a human being, I think, as I've already said, you spend so much time at work, spend more time with my colleagues than I probably do my friends and family, speaking to them, etc. And if you're not 100% yourself, you're not going to be doing your best work. You'll be wasting so much energy and mental capacity trying to hide who you are, not revealing your partner's pronouns when you're talking about what you did at the weekend or something you're particularly excited about or proud of. And it can be really exhausting. And therefore, again, it's better for business. If you don't have exhausted or distracted employees, you're going to get better business outcomes, and they're going to be happier and healthier employees overall. So that's why I think it's particularly important, and automotive is getting there. we're on the right track. And we'll just keep advocating in that space overall.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, have you seen any real shifts in attitudes or opportunities since you first started, or does it still feel like a slow climb?
I've seen real shifts. So I'll give you an example. When I started out in automotive, as an undergraduate doing my internship, there was, in the organization I worked in, there was no sort of the beginnings of a diversity and inclusion strategy. And with that, employee network groups. So I think firstly, there was a group for sort of female employees and around career advancement and empowerment, which is a topic I'm really passionate about as well. And then we saw sort of the LGBT group kind of was formed while I was there as an undergraduate, and then really have seen it take off from there. So from this particular organization, we then saw I returned as a graduate after university, and then we attended our first Pride and sponsored that Pride in Milton Keynes, locally where I live. And I've seen that advocacy grow through to sort of inclusion within sort of people and HR policies as well, in terms of policies around inclusion and areas like that, which is now where I think a lot of the advocacies come from. We almost see, I liken the employee network groups are very similar to a university society in a way. I think you start with almost like a grassroots foundation, and then you find you almost become embedded within that kind of businesses, practices and policies, which is really, really great. And that's certainly where, coming into Carwow, that work had already been done. Our amazing people team have deliberately ambiguous people policies that don't necessarily make any reference specifically to the gender of a partner. Our parental leave policy is termed as, it sounds quite clinical, but like however you choose to acquire a child, whether that's through natural means, IVF, adoption, for example, the policy is open to all means. So it's deliberately ambiguous and inclusive, which is really great. So then the next step of that, I think, is then that career advancement and ensuring that everyone can have the career that they're looking for, which is where I feel like the space is now moving towards, and certainly where I'm aiming to sort of push things as well, which is really fun.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's wonderful. So you've had some very different experiences with workplace culture, from a state agency to now working at Carwow. What's the biggest contrast between these environments when it comes to authenticity and feeling supported?
Well, I think that's a really good question. Those two experiences couldn't be more different, but I think my approach has always sort of been the same. I don't know whether that's sort of just a want to be authentic or just sort of naivety, probably earlier on in my career for sure. And I found that actually you can it comes down to kind of how you interpret how other people feel about your sexual orientation, for me anyways. And it's up to your colleagues and how they kind of treat you, but you can sort of choose to take it in a particular way as well. So an example is, if when I was an estate agent, I was only 20, a little baby, trying to sell houses. And I did find that actually it never occurred to me that anybody at work wouldn't be accepting of the fact I was gay. But I did find that my boss actually used it and weaponized it to some degrees. I remember this one client was an sort of older gay man, and he wasn't happy with the fact that we weren't able to sell his home, and would continually phone my manager and complain about the lack of viewings of his home, and that we were suggesting that he drop the price of the house to encourage more people and more interest. On occasion, or well, every time, I was dispatched by my manager to go to his house and sort of remedy the situation. And I found that that wasn't because I was particularly skilled at sort of conflict resolution at the time. I was a month or 2 months into my career at that point. I think she literally just thought, well, he's a younger, relatively attractive guy. Let them just go and sort it out. And I found that weaponization also translated through to how she treated me in front of the team. On one occasion in team meetings, she described me as just the fluffer, and that I was just sort of there to, jolly things along and not be skilled. Yeah, I know. I think, again, with my naivety, I didn't take huge offense, and I think it could have really knocked my confidence later in my career. But I think the next kind of iteration of that, coming from university into that job, was actually I was riding high off being president of LGBT. So going into automotive sort of didn't really cross my mind. And then if you cut now to Carwow, my previous role at Carwow was a partnerships manager. I was client facing. Often when people come in, you try and warm them up, and you talk around like, how are you doing? Catch up with them. They're family life, had there been any holidays, etc. And my partner's career and profession always comes up as like a bit of an icebreaker. For context, he's a farmer.
Okay.
Very, very different to London office media sales life. When I go into the office and then I come home to the farm, and my team will often bring it up with clients as a topic of conversation. It eases us into the presentation. And the first couple of times it happened, I did actually sort of take a moment and think, well, actually, what you're asking me to do here is to come out to the client. And that's something that I have to do. No one else in the room has to do that, because you're using this anecdote. And that's where I think the context and how somebody's sort of interacting with you is so important, because in that moment, as an LGBT person, you think everyone's just honing in on your sexual orientation, and actually they weren't at all. And I've spoken to numerous colleagues about this afterwards, and that never crossed their mind. The fact that I was telling the client, oh, I'm gay, it was, yeah, but your home life is so interesting. And that's what we were honing in on, and the contrast. And so I think that's where you might interpret something from like an LGBTQ plus perspective, somebody else is seeing something from a different perspective, and you have to appreciate that and understand that that's the context that they're in, and how to interpret that situation as well. And also, I think confidence is key, right? So when I was 20 and an estate agent, very little confidence, because I was just so new into my career. I was never going to push back against a manager that called me a fluffer. Whereas actually, to remind myself that we're in the boardroom, we're with these clients. Yes, they are senior, typically middle-aged white men who are directors or managing directors of some of the world's most recognizable brands, but they're in my office. I wrote the slide deck, I'm holding the microphone, and I'm fully in control of the next 2 hours. So I'm the one that's got the power here. No one is going to react badly to when I say, oh, my partner is a farmer, and then obviously mention he rather than she. And then I think from that point, and when you get that point of like self-realization of, oh, this isn't an issue, I've really found that I've felt empowered, but also can really almost like level up in terms of that confidence, and take that forwards into other roles. So now I'm more behind the scenes, but there's a lot more, I think, in terms of senior stakeholders and conflict resolution, and just being comfortable in conflicts, that actually now I understand that typically that conflict isn't aimed at me because I'm a gay man. It's aimed at me because I've put a piece of work forwards and I need a solution to this, or what my proposal is. It's helpful sometimes, I think, to unpack that while somebody doesn't necessarily see you how you see yourself. I think in those moments, I've been really grateful to have the support of a mentor and different people around the business also to help me get to that point. I don't think, I mean, it would be a Herculean effort to get there by yourself without coaching and mentoring and things like that as well. So it's a process.
Nice. We touched about this a little bit, but you've mentioned the lack of obviously senior LGBTQ plus role models in UK automotive. When you can't always look up and see someone like you, where do you draw inspiration from?
That's a really good question. And I think the term role model, I think for a lot of people, you assume a senior leader within an organization. So I guess like a CEO or a director. And I think actually, particularly in the absence of somebody who sort of has your characteristics and is in those positions, I think you can find qualities from around all of your colleagues or even your friends. And I would describe it, I don't know if this translates in the States, but like a pick and mix. I don't know if you have that, where when I was a kid, you'd go to a shop and there'd be loads of sweets laid out and you'd get a bag and you'd pick, I don't know, some like Cola bottle and like fizzy sweets, whatever, and put them all in a bag. You'd weigh it and pay. That's how I think you should treat role models. And you can take qualities from a particular colleague or a friend, and then you can kind of take little bits of their best attributes and try and take those into yourself and try and emulate them overall. So then you don't need that one perfect role model. You can have 10, for example, and try and emulate different areas of different people who you look up to and respect. And I think that's served me really well throughout my career so far, just seeing how different people interact, like conflict resolution or presenting or sales, or how they tackle problem solving, for example. And you can take all those elements and be inspired for what you do and how you move forwards.
Nice. I like that. That's an interesting way to look at like you're grabbing pretty much the best of people, like what you see. I like that because I mean, I think there's a reason that we have the friends we have outside of our work life because we like their characteristics. We like maybe what they, how what they represent, how they represent themselves. I think early on in my, even my coming out, I was friends with certain people because I was maybe in a way like in awe of how easy it was for them to come out or how they just represented themselves. And I thought that was just so inspiring. And I think that in the same, in the same way in the workplace, if you get to see, oh, well, here's, Joseph over here, I like how he has this great drive. And I like how Susan over here has just, you can see all these different ways that you can pull their different their different characteristics and kind of build that, I wouldn't say perfect person, but you get to put someone together because obviously we're not all perfect, but you get to put a pretty good representation of what you ideally would like to, see to be. And I think that's a really great way of doing it. I hadn't actually thought about that before, but it makes sense.
Absolutely. I think it's really great as well as an exercise to sit, I think, and think about the people who you maybe work with every day, or I don't know, friends and family as well, and actually note down and reflect on what you think is a great attribute that they have and how you can learn and take that and write that down and build through. I don't think, well, so you can take them one by one. I think that was also my approach. You can't take 10 different people with 10 attributes and go, I'm going to be all of these 10 things all at once. I think you'd exhaust yourself, but you can do it gradually and build up. And I think as you navigate through your career as well, at different times, you need different attributes and you can really lean into different areas of those people who inspire you as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that one of the phrases I've heard for it seems like quite a while now, but I've always been told that you are the product of your closest like 5 people around you. And I feel that works in work as well as personally. If you
Definitely.
don't have, like for me, doing what I'm doing as coaching, as a podcast, if I didn't have people in my circle of influence, those those top 5 people who encouraged me, who wanted me to do that, outside of my family, but also included my family, because my sister was a big proponent of me going into coaching and doing my podcast. But I feel that if you don't have those people around you, it's why, unfortunately, some people don't succeed and they don't see that they can possibly do something. For you to be, the president of the group at your university, I mean, that's huge. And just to see how much that helped you going forward in your life, and who would, if you hadn't had that conversation with your friend to say, well, the vote got canceled now, and then you would have experienced seeing a whole year without that representation at the university. And that's, I mean, perfect timing, but also I believe things happen for a reason and things are brought into our, into our space, into our life, however you want to think it, for reasons. There's a reason, that I started this podcast when I did. There's a reason that I started coaching when I did. There's a reason that you're doing what you're doing because of things kind of all aligned. And even if sometimes they don't all align at the right time, when you still push forward, when we take that action to get to where we want to be or where we strive to be that type of professional is key to our success.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you as well. Because I think, like we chatted about earlier, like this is your third podcast. And then actually, if I was now just reflecting on it, having had the conversation with you as well, from always wanting to be in cars to a very convoluted route, I've ended up back to where I wanted to be. And largely in part, I think as well, I've had the roles I've had because that friend told me about that vote. And I've been able to grow and gather skills that I would have never had ordinarily just going through my career because I've had these sort of LGBT focused roles and diversity inclusion roles as well. And I think if that's something that I guess on a practical level, if someone's looking for advice, it is a great way to break out from your day job and get experience doing other things and those transferable skills to get you to where you want to be in your career as well. I think any diversity and inclusion work or even allyship across any of the different groups and characteristics that tend to have these groups within organizations is super, super valuable, from just a skill set, from just being a person and having a purpose and drive and value, but also networking and those career elements as well that we all have to do. I think it's incredibly valuable. And yeah, everything does happen for a reason, and you never know where you'll end up.
Very true. Yeah. So you've had the experience of being mentored by another LGBTQ plus professional. What was that like for you? And what did it give you that a more generic mentorship might not?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just so you know, so we have the mentoring was set up by Carwow, and we have an amazing culture manager at Carwow who is a huge advocate for all of the groups that we have. And she very kindly set me up with my LGBT mentor, who is incredible. He is my mentor. To be honest with you, he's also a therapist, whether he likes it or not. And I think it's,
I kind of feel that's what happens with a mentor, though. They kind of become you're a little bit of a therapist, but yeah.
yeah, I think sometimes he dreads having a coffee with me because I'm just going to just like let it all out. But it's great because you have that similar perspective. And there are certain, again, I guess, it's that situation like I described in the boardroom, right? Where you have to do the icebreaker and you have to come out. Only another gay man or another LGBTQ plus person will understand what that really means to you. And they have that context that is almost invisible, but you know by when you're having a conversation with them and you're looking in your eyes that they understand it on another level to somebody who isn't gay or LGBT. And I think that's so important. And I think as a result of that, we've definitely had better quality conversations around how to see and approach different topics. He is also senior within the legal team, so I also get diversity from his skill set, and I've learned a lot from how the legal team approach elements from a practical level. I've learned more around how to get stuff done within the business as well. If you have legal on your side, things go a lot more smoothly. It's something I would certainly recommend. I think either an LGBT coach mentor, I think is something that is extremely important because you feel at ease. And if you think about the straight white man in the boardroom, they feel at ease because they're with people who are like them, and people who are like them are coaching their careers as well. So to some degree, your career is a game. You've got to play that game to the best of your ability. And if we can all help each other do that, I think we can become really powerful and enable a lot of people to have the careers that they're looking for, regardless of whether that's being a director or a performer or a public speaker or even a careers coach. We can all help each other.
I love that. I love that. I'm a little jealous that you actually had an LGBTQ plus like mentor. I really am. Not that I didn't love my mentor. I mean, he was incredible. Oh my gosh, he was amazing. But you're right. Like when you have those certain experiences as an LGBTQ plus person, your typical straight cis man is not going to be able to relate when you might have some work relationship, like, but not necessarily, because depending on what we're going through in our work environment, we are probably not going to be able to relate, which is unfortunate. But I'm thankful for that company that I worked with, because I never had a mentor before any time I worked with a company. And again, it was the good old UK based company. I mean, I find that funny that I've had other people who've had mentors, here in the US in different companies, but I feel that that was my first time as an experience having that. And I think when you get to have it, especially right out the gate, when you first start in a company like I had, it's so beneficial. It's so helpful. It's helpful just to have a mentor in general. But when you have that LGBTQ plus professional as your mentor, I think it's going to really help you. So if someone listening is nervous about reaching out for a queer mentor, what would you say to them?
I'd say if they know someone specifically, absolutely reach out and ask to go for a coffee. From my perspective, I think there is no greater compliment than being asked to go for a coffee for career advice. And you can't pay somebody a higher compliment at work, I don't feel. And yeah, if you don't ask, you don't get, right? So you need to communicate with that person, openly ask them as well, and be really direct with what you're looking for. And if they can't offer it themselves, I'm sure they will point you in the right direction as well. And it doesn't need to be a super formal arrangement. I mean, I would encourage a regular coffee catch up, for example, and to go somewhere if you can outside the office, where I just feel that you can have a freer conversation within the confines of a boardroom or a meeting room. But yeah, there's no higher compliment you can pay, so absolutely reach out. And that mentor doesn't necessarily need to be at work as well. If you have a friend who is really thriving in their career, why not reach out to them first? And You don't necessarily need to look through an org chart of your business to find somebody as well. And in the absence of that as well, you have like careers coaches such as yourself as well. You can find people whose job and purpose it is to support you and really make the most of it as well. It's not weakness to ask for help or to have a mentor. It is a great strength as well.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree. It's why I do what I do as a careers coach. And especially, and I know I got a little bit pushback when I initially wanted to do this, but to be an LGBTQ plus careers coach and wanting to support LGBTQ plus professionals, I believe is the most important thing I could do because I've been there. I know what it's like. I've had the experiences. And there might be some who are able to be more authentic, be more visual, be more themselves in the workplace than I ever was. And again, I know we brought this up before, but kudos to you. Good job. Because I can't imagine. Now, a lot of it had to do with the industries that I was in. There's a lot of industries that still, and will probably still continue, that you really can't be your authentic self. And it's unfortunate, but I feel that when you have a mentor, if you have a careers coach, whoever it might be, that you can speak to have those conversations, I think that you're going to be stronger for it.
Absolutely.
So in your view, what does career success look like as an LGBTQ plus professional, especially in industries that aren't traditionally diverse?
That's a tricky one. I think firstly, I define success or career success as not necessarily a particular job role or a salary. Personally, I would define it as waking up on a Monday morning and not hating where you're going to have to get to and enjoying the work you do. And I'm really privileged actually that I do wake up on a Monday morning and I'm really motivated to go to work and be around my colleagues and do what I do. I think when you put that LGBTQ plus lens on it, it's around not only loving where you're going to turn up at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning, but turning up as yourself as well. And as we've discussed, it's a great privilege when you can do that. There are still organizations and industries where that is less possible, but I'm sure that if we were to all do one small thing to advocate for each other, we can get there overall, even in the climate that we're in, particularly in the US. I'm sure we can get there overall. And you may find just pockets of other people who are just like you as well. And that's where I think organizations and like ENGs within an organization are so powerful because they do bring people together from different departments who you may have never even interacted with on a professional basis, but actually there could be another LGBTQ plus person in finance that you've never met, and you can come together and you have that commonality of experience and you can advocate together. There are also groups where I've worked in Bristol before. There's a group who sort of support each other across different businesses, but within sectors. So that was aerospace that they were advocating for each other in. And it's something that I really want to try and do more of within automotive as well, is reach out across businesses. And Carwow as a marketplace is a great mechanism to do that because we have relationships with 45 different car brands in the UK. So we can start really trying to bring people together, and hopefully then that helps. Even if you are maybe a slightly smaller business and you are literally maybe one of 10 people and you are the only sort of LGBT person, you can still find that commonality and your people in your tribe in your industry, which I think will really help overall, even if your business isn't quite there yet.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I like that. So has your definition of success changed as you've gained more experience?
Oh, 100%. I think when I was starting out in my career, that definition of success was certainly around money and job title. And, you must be good because you're a director and you're earning however many thousands a year. And now actually, I guess as I've matured through my career, you understand that success looks and feels different depending on who you are and what your ambitions are and what you want to achieve. And I think a lot of that's also been sort of gathered from seeing how my friends from university, my group of LGBT people on that committee and allies have all developed their careers and how they're successful all in their own rights. And they're all doing completely different things. And none of them earn a huge amount of money and none of them are directors, but they're still successful. And they inspire and drive me every day as well. So yeah, it's certainly, I think, evolved into a more nuanced definition of what success is for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I think actually you made a really good point, just following up, that if you're not waking up dreading Monday, dreading going to the office, I feel, going into your job or, logging in, whatever, if you're working remotely or whatever it might be, that's a huge success in itself. Because I feel that you obviously are in a position or in a company where you're enjoying what you're doing, you're enjoying the people you're working with, probably, especially as an LGBTQ plus professional, you're comfortable with yourself. You're actually able to most likely be your authentic self. And I know it's a conversation I've had with numerous people through on this podcast, is that obviously authenticity a lot of times, as I've said a few times recently, is that, excuse me, you have to read the room. You have to see how much authenticity you can share. And when it really comes down to it, it's up to you how much you want to share and how much authenticity you get to decide on what you get to be in the workplace. But little caveat there, you need to make sure that you're 100% your authentic self around your friends, especially your friends. And hopefully that spills over into your family, because you need that support group outside of the workplace, because if you're not going to get it in the workplace, you definitely need to have it outside. But hopefully, like you've had the experience, and is that hopefully you get to have a mentor that's LGBTQ plus, that will definitely help you succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you can't be your authentic self at work, you need that outlet of being able to be yourself, whether it's your friends and your family as well. I think just if you think of like a Friday night after working Monday to Friday, you need to be able to go with your friends, go to a gay bar and just fully be yourself for a moment. Whether that is at a gay bar, you want to go and play board games or read a book or do something, but you need that release, because else you're going to bottle up all of this stress and it's just going to compound and it's not going to be healthy.
For sure. And I know one of the biggest things I loved about coming out, and when I did come out, was when I went to the gay bars, I got to have that freedom to dance, to have those conversations, to just go and take just a deep breath and go, I'm here. I can be myself. I don't have to worry about who is next to me. I'm just me, and I get to be me with those people who want to be around me because of who I am. And I'm around them because I enjoy who they are. And you get to, most of the time, listen to good music, or maybe see, depending on the bar, maybe see a good drag show, or, whatever that might be. So, alrighty, we're going to change pace by quite a bit. So if your career so far was a car, what would it be and why?
Goodness me. That's such a tough question. I'm also now rattling through my head. You know, when someone asks you like your favorite movie and you forget every movie you've ever seen ever? That's how I feel right now. I would have to say that I don't know if I can find a specific brand, but I'll describe the attributes of the car and maybe the brand will come to me at the end. I would say that that car is forward looking, confident, and is kind of really fortunate to be at the forefront of where things are at within the automotive industry, which is going to be controversial, I think, particularly to your American listeners, but it is likely to be some sort of new entrant Chinese brand, or maybe I'm trying to think of it. Rivian would be a really great example of an American brand sort of embracing the new. I think that's partly driven by what my role is within the organization that I work in, but also where that organization is at within the car industry overall. We're looking to push boundaries and embrace the new, which is something that automotive is somewhat lagging behind. So yeah, I've found that particularly my automotive industry I've been very fortunate that I'm sort of embracing topics that are at the forefront of what the automotive industry could be, particularly sort of around sales and marketing, which is really, really cool. So yeah, I'm going to go with Rivian to appeal to the North American listeners.
So, okay, well, I'm going to go one step further on that then. The SUV or the truck?
See, this is where my partner being a farmer is going to have to be the truck.
That makes sense. Yeah, I get that. I see them so much here, both of them. And we actually have some friends who just got the truck. And I know some people will probably be like, oh, but it's Rivian. But it's also, for me, it's like, but it's Rivian. Like that, it's a cool design. I can always tell a Rivian when I see one. It's like, oh yeah, that's a Rivian. I've learned how to be able to tell cars just by their brake lights. I can tell you what the car is, because either their brake lights might do something cool. They might do something different, a unique way than other brands. And it's just like, oh yeah, I know what that is. I know what that is. I know what that is. Which I'm a very visual person, so it makes sense why I would recognize them. But yeah.
No, that's the testament to great car design, which is something I'm not capable of.
Nor am I, but I can at least recognize it. Alrighty. So go-to karaoke song when you need to blow off steam.
Only because I can always think of Shrek, and I need a hero? I'm looking for a hero. I'm not going to sing it, but I think it's Shrek. It might be Shrek 1 or Shrek 2, but there's the sing. I think it's Shrek 2 because the gingerbread man, and he's really big, and he comes and saves the castle like a giant, and Jennifer Saunders is singing, and it is just, I think, one of the best movie scenes ever. So yeah, if I've had a few tequilas, probably I need a hero.
Bless you on the tequilas. I can't do tequila. Oh my goodness. I did way too much when I was younger. Actually, yeah, way too many. So I think I already know this, but I'll still ask because you kind of referenced it a little bit, maybe. Tea or coffee before a Monday morning meeting?
So I have a reputation. It is always an iced vanilla latte. That is my summer drink. And funnily enough, this is really on a tangent. I go to Starbucks every morning at the train station before I go. And I go so often and I order the same drink that as I walk into Starbucks, they're already making the latte for me. And I just tap my card and go.
Nice.
And I have a reputation that if I ask for an extra shot, the girl behind the counter always looks at me and goes, is it going to be a hard day today? I'm like, yeah, it's a big day. Give me that extra shot. And then, yeah, twice a year, we have the conversation around the transition from iced to hot. And it's always a big moment when I walk in and go, no, put the ice down. It's cold now. It's sort of late September. We're going to a hot vanilla latte. So yeah, nice. I don't know why it's such a feature of my commute, and I really love it. But yes,
I love that. And actually, it's a very simple drink. I like the vanilla lattes. I actually make my coffee at home now, but because since working from home, we have one that a Starbucks is actually very close to us. But I'm actually using Starbucks coffee to make my drink. I'm just not going in. But there is times when I go in that, yeah, they're not that good. They don't start making it when I'm walking in the door, but they do know who I am because I've come in so frequently. So I like that. Okay. One queer icon you'd love to share a drink with, and what's the drink?
Goodness me. Do you know what, actually? This is going to seem really basic, but I would want to sit down with RuPaul and have an espresso martini, and I would want to sit and not talk about the drag, but talk around the business behind Drag Race and how they scaled that to be this worldwide phenomenon, because that is not an accident. And I think RuPaul is an incredible businesswoman, and I'd want to learn and see that side of it, I think, because I'm fascinated with stuff that's always behind the scenes and how stuff works. Disneyland and the running of Disney World in Florida fascinates me, because how you deliver the magic on the surface, you've got to have such a nerd, you've got to have amazing processes behind the scenes. Maybe that's why I love the job. I feel like now I'm in therapy. Now I'm like, this is the job I do. And you've got to have amazing processes behind the scenes to deliver that magic. Magic doesn't just happen. And that's what I'd like to understand, I think, from Rue.
I love that. No, that's a good way to think about it, because, things we only see normally, the front side of it, like what's being presented to us. And it's kind of like you meant, like with Disney, like we see what's presented to us, but it'd be kind of fun to see what's happening in the background. It's the same thing with obviously going along with RuPaul and the show and how much but you look at it, any show, a TV show or movie, there's so much that happens behind the scenes and behind to make it to where it is, to make it successful, from casting to the scenery to the costumes to whatever they might. So yeah, no, it would be interesting actually, because RuPaul's Drag Race has definitely become a true phenomenon, like for sure.
Absolutely. I think also I think that's why mentoring is so important as well, because actually if you were to just look and see a successful LGBT person in an organization, you think that that's just happened. And actually, if you got the behind the scenes secrets of their own career, you can take lessons from that and apply it to your own life as well. So there we are. That's almost now like a full circle moment.
Yes.
We've got there.
All right. And last question for you. Dream travel destination if you could just unplug for 2 weeks starting tomorrow.
I wish that was real. I would go to South Africa purely because I love Cape Town. I've been once before with a friend from university, and it was just South Africa is just the most beautiful place I've ever been. And I think Cape Town has the vibrancy of a city break within, and it feels familiar as a European, obviously for obvious reasons around sort of colonization and all those awful things. But it has that sort of familiarity, but also that difference and that breathtaking beauty. And you can drive out of Cape Town. And I love going on, like the idea of going on safari, and I've been on safari and it's incredible, and just fully embracing nature and disconnecting from phones and Wi-Fi. I think particularly when you work in tech as well, just fully disconnecting is so, so important. So I think to have that contrast of amazing city, shopping, restaurants, and all of that good stuff, and also the ability to disconnect all within one place, I would say South Africa and Cape Town.
I love that. That is somewhere that I have not been that I would love to go to. I'm the same way though. Going somewhere where you can disconnect, that you don't have technology, you don't have, is huge. Love when we here in Colorado, we obviously more than half our state is mountains. And I love that being able to go in there I love seeing when all of a sudden my phone doesn't work anymore. It's like, sweet. I mean, obviously we like connection. Obviously, if anything bad could possibly happen, if we would come across possibly an animal like a bear or something, that would obviously be nice to have a connection. But on the other hand, it would be it's just so wonderful to just enjoy everything around you and to get that disconnect, to breathe in that amazing, like clean air. Like I think that's one thing that I make a point of doing multiple times a year. It's a great stress reliever, number one, but it's also it's a great way to remember what we have, what's around us, to be able to enjoy just the beauty of what was created right in front of us. And it doesn't have to be seen on a television or a phone or a computer. It's just right in front of us. And to be able to see wildlife interact in their own environment, which is kind of cool to see that as well.
It's a really great way to sort of earth yourself. I think that's why, and we talked about it earlier, right? So the contrast of my day job and my partner on the farm. So when I come away from London in an evening and just get back to the peace and quiet, and also the darkness of not being in a city is so good. I think it's a really great privilege to be able to have that and to disconnect from city life, which is also amazing. And I love my days in the city, but to come away from that as well and recharge is hugely beneficial to me.
It's very important. People don't realize it. I know a lot of times I'll see people on social media, I'm like, oh, I'm going to disconnect from technology for whatever. Unfortunately, then at times I'm like, I'm a little jealous because for doing my coaching, to all the social media type of, content that I create, I can't really fully disconnect. I can to a degree, but I can't to like the level some people can go, oh, I didn't post anything for like 7 days. That actually stresses me out a little bit to know that I would go, because running a business, I can't go silent for that long. So Ben, what key piece of advice or actionable tip could you leave our listeners today based on what we've talked about with your work, advocacy, if I can say the word, and more?
I think one piece of advice I'd give is, if you can, do something that benefits the community as a whole, even if it's one small thing. You don't need to lead a society for a year. Although it was an immense privilege, and if you have the opportunity, I would highly recommend that. It doesn't need to be a big grand gesture. It could just be sitting down and accepting a coffee with a colleague or somebody who's reached out, and to help that person out with their own career. And I think if everybody who was LGBT just did one small thing, we would achieve a huge amount in terms of advocacy, particularly in the face of darker times ahead, potentially. Thinking around the political situation in North America as well, but I think also generally there seems to be, I would almost describe it as sort of a grey cloud forming and sort of dimming the rainbow ever so slightly. So I think we can all club together and help each other out. And that would be the one piece of advice I'd give anybody listening to this, is just advocate and help each other out.
I love that. And it's very important. I feel that Well, it brings us together. We get to learn more about ourselves, our community, those around us. We get better educated. We learn more. And I think in turn, we're better for it when we do that.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
thank you so much. Well, I am so glad that we got to have this conversation. I really am. You've shown that, authenticity isn't just about being yourself. It's also about finding or building the spaces where your true self can actually thrive. And I know this for a fact. It's something, that a lot of the listeners need to hear right now. And you just like touched on it, just with the political climate and just how everything has been going, and hopefully won't go on for too long, but that might continue to go on for at least a little bit. So I thank you for that. To everyone tuning in, if his story hit home for you, share this episode with a friend or a coworker who needs that reminder as well. And a little plug for myself, of course. If you're feeling stuck or unsure how to show up as you at work, that's exactly what we do inside the Empowered and Out coaching program. You can find the link in the show notes. If you want to connect with Ben on LinkedIn, I will put that in there as well. And if you want to have even, more of this conversation, and just be able to listen to support this podcast, go on to Patreon and support. It's conversations like this that I am so fortunate to share is what gives me this opportunity. So, at the end of the day, your voice belongs in every room that you walk into. And we're here to make sure that you believe that. Until next time, stay empowered, stay out, and keep driving forward with authenticity, representation, and the confidence to build a career that feels truly you.